Welcome to the Verse by Verse Bible Study. This week, Jerry will be taking us through Isaiah 33, 34, and 35, Assyria, Armageddon, and the Millennium. Thank you for joining us. Please remember to like and to subscribe.
Today, we're going to be speaking about three different things, really, and three different time periods. One is the invasion of the Assyrians and their destruction and the deliverance of Israel, of Jerusalem, rather. The other is during the tribulation, the final battle of the tribulation. And the third is during the millennial reign of Christ. So those are kind of important things, important events in life. And it's interesting when I was going through this, I keep thinking of, doesn't anybody in the world that's in power read the Bible? It's just, they tell you what's going to happen and no one's paying attention to it. But anyway, at least we can pay attention to it and realize what's going on and not be concerned about what all these terrible things we hear every day. You go, ugh! And you can say, the plan's happening, stay your course, and don't panic, okay? A quick outline. First of all, Jerusalem's going to be delivered. We said that. And Assyria is going to be destroyed. The sinful world will be judged. And then the glorious kingdom, which is the millennium, will be discussed, okay? Okay, Jerusalem will be just delivered. The Israelites, remember, are now have not been following the Lord. From the day one, by the third day, they started questioning him after they came across the Red Sea. And they've never followed him. They say they were the reason for the 70 years of captivity was they supposed to have every 70 years a year of jubilee, and they didn't do that for 70 years. So then they had spent 70 years or 70 times. So then they spent 70 years in Babylon because of that. So what's going on is the Assyrians are marching towards Jerusalem. They're taking all the land around. They've already conquered the northern kingdom. They're now conquering going to conquer the southern kingdom. Their prize is Jerusalem, and that's where they're headed. Okay, they're ready to come in and take Jerusalem. Okay, first thing, somebody read in chapter 33, verses 1 through 6.
Woe to you, destroyer, you who have not been destroyed. Woe to you, betrayer, you who have not been betrayed. When you stop destroying, you will be destroyed. When you stop betraying, you will be betrayed. Lord, be gracious to us. We long for you. Be our strength every morning, our salvation in time of distress. At the uproar of your army, the peoples flee. When you rise up, the nations scatter. Your plunder, O nations, is harvested as by young locusts, like a swarm of locust people pounds upon it. The Lord is exalted, for he dwells on high. He will fill Zion with his justice and righteousness. And six. He will be the sure foundation for your times, a rich store of salvation and wisdom and knowledge. The fear of the Lord is the key to this treasure.
Okay, so this is the sixth woe. We've already gone through 5 other ones, and this woe is directed towards Sennacherib. And basically what happened was he was the king of Assyria. He was getting ready to attack, he's going through the things. He's going to attack King Hezekiah, the king of Judah, and he was a bad guy. He was a thief, a traitor, but every agreement he had with Judah in the past, he had broken away. He had not done it. But the prophecy that Isaiah is talking about in these verses looks beyond Assyria, and it's really looking to any power, anytime, anywhere that sets itself against Israel, saying this is not good, and he's going to do why it's not good, and he's going to go through all that. So that's what's happening, and that was the first verse. Then the second verse, immediately they jump into the first verse is wrong. First of all, they don't. It's interesting how they break up the verses, but then in verse 2, he talks about this is a prayer of the godly remnant that is in Jerusalem, that's being surrounded by him. And my version here says, "Oh Lord, be gracious to us." The King James says, "Be merciful." And that basically they're saying, you know, if you're gracious, give us something that we don't deserve, which is salvation and freedom, or be merciful. Don't give us something that we do deserve, because they do deserve to be destroyed. Okay. So anyway, this prayer, and the prayer here, it's interesting. The prayer they're talking about is, be thou their strength everything. They're praying for, first of all, the military, the men in the military. They need to be given comfort, and they need to be given energy every day. They're defending them. So he's talking about the military here, the service people, they rely on that. And then also the people, and he's praying for the people themselves, because they depend on God. They say they do. They've never shown it, but they say they depend on God for every supply and for their salvation themselves. Okay. Then in verse 3, the prayer is answered. So, you know, sometimes prayers can be answered very quickly. So they say the prayer, it's answered immediately. Okay. But it's answered with abundance. They prayed that God would save them from their enemies, but he did more than that. He gave them victory over the enemies. So in verse 3, it says, at the sound of the tumult, people flee. At the lifting of thyself, nations disperse. So there's a battle cry, and then he wins. Okay. But he wins not by deferring them and keeping them away from them. He wins by being defeated. Now, how were they defeated? One angel in one night killed 185,000 people. That's kind of a big deal. We're going to talk a little bit more about that throughout this thing. Isaiah brings that up a lot, because it's like, it's important that happened like that. Okay. So he gave them not just salvation, but deliverance, but he gave them in abundance. Okay. So now in verse 4, it says, and your spoil is gathered as the caterpillars gather, as the locust rushing about, men rush about on it. What he's saying is, there's so much spoil out there. They're just like a caterpillar. When they start going through those leaves, man, they're gone. They eat them up. And the locusts, they come rushing through. They're everywhere. There's 185,000 dead guys out there. And there's all these people inside here, and they're going, well, they got all that stuff. Let's go. You know, the spoils are usually shared a lot of times, but the king gets it, and the country. Sometimes in the scripture, it tells where they share. I think David one time shared the spoils for everybody that came and helped with the battle. Here, everybody in Jerusalem gets a share of the spoils. Okay. We'll talk about it in a little bit more about that too. Then in verse 5, the spoils of the enemy are gathered. The Lord is exalted. It says the Lord is exalted, for he dwells on high. His people are going to have the blessing of the spoils of the guys that were coming to kill him. Okay. And he's exalted. Christ is exalted. God is exalted in here, because no human wisdom or power could have done what God had done, which is the 185,000 with one angel and one guy in one night. Okay. Then in verse 6, it goes in there and says, King Hezekiah and his people were encouraged with an assurance that God would stand by them in their distress. We must remember that the nations and individuals have stability in uncertain times today only when they trust God and seek his wisdom and glory. That's where I wish the nations would seek his wisdom and glory. They're not. I don't know if any of us are. You know, we're all doing our own thing. Our nations are all doing their own thing. They are all trying to figure it out humanly. And God says that doesn't work. And he gives us good examples of that not working. He says, the right way is just ask me, and I'll show you, and I'll help you. Okay. Then King Hezekiah did a foolish thing. He tried to bribe King, say that again. Sennacherib. I can't. That's a good name. Sennacherib. They could not. He tried to bribe him. It didn't work. God forgave King Hezekiah for that. But then, and he said, the fear of the Lord is your treasure. Okay. Unbelief looks to to human resources to help, and faith looks to God. Okay. Think of the Israeli-Hamas war right now.
Yeah.
The people are doing the same thing. They're trying to figure it out themselves, right? They're trying to figure it out themselves. The little war in Ukraine, we keep trying to, no one's praying about it. I mean, people are praying, don't get me wrong. But there's no governments trying to solve that biblically at all. It's just, we're going to do it this way. We're going to make this piece and that piece and whatever. It could actually be. It makes you wonder, though, that I don't bring that up with my Ukrainian students, but it makes me wonder: is this event going on right now the precursor to Ezekiel 38-39 war? I mean, you got to think, you got to put that in your mind.
Turkey,
Yeah, and Turkey, all the things are falling in place, which you couldn't even imagine a year or two, 5, 10 years ago. You couldn't imagine. Now it's starting to fall into place, and you've got to look at it and say, God, the plan's working. Okay. And we know what the plan is. Okay. We don't know all the details. God doesn't have to give us all the details, it turns out. Okay, somebody read verse 7 through 12.
Surely their valiant ones shall cry outside. The ambassadors of peace shall weep bitterly. The highways lie waste. The traveling man ceases. He has broken the covenant. He has despised the cities. He regards no man. The earth mourns and languishes. Lebanon is shamed and shriveled. Sharon is like a wilderness, and Bashan and Carmel shake off their fruits. Now I will rise, say the Lord. Now I will be exalted. Now I will lift myself up. You shall conceive chaff. You shall bring forth stubble. Your breath as fire shall devour you, and the people shall be like burnings of lime. Like thorns cut up, they shall be burned in the fire.
What's happening? This is the time, there Assyrian invasion's going on. The situation in Judah is grim. The bravest soldiers are weeping because they're seeing one city after another that they've protected most of their military career fall. They can't do anything about it. They don't do anything about it. The official Jewish envoys are weeping because every time they get something, it falls through. Does this sound like today?
Yeah.
I thought I was doing an Old Testament book, and it's over. It's still going on. It's still going on. The roads were dangerous. The fields and orchards were ruined. There's no way to escape. People were inside Jerusalem. There's no way out. Okay, they can't see anything going on. Then verse 10, except for God. And he says, he's going through this. Now, that means it was pre-planned. Okay, because it's like in the process, now's the time I will be exalted. How's he going to be exalted? By what he's going to do. I mean, when people see this, they're going to talk about it. Okay, they're going to talk about it. Okay, and then verse 11, it says, you will have conceived chaff and you will give birth to stubble. This is cool. What this means is one of the commentaries wrote up, that's pretty cool. The Assyrians were pregnant with ideas about how to do that. But what are they going to do? Oh, you'll conceive chaff and stubble. Nothing's going to come of it. That's what he's saying here. He says, look, this is so cool because it's like they think they have all the ideas in the world, but nothing is going to happen. You're not going to have a pregnancy like you think you are. You're not going to have the joy of your plans being completed. And then in 12, it says the army is panting to attack. But this is the Assyrian army, but their hot breath would only become fire that would destroy them like dead bones, which is the lime that talks about in there, and cut bushes. God's long suffering with his enemies, but when he decides to judge, he does a thorough job. I wanted to bring this kind of an aside real quick on here. This is the map of the Assyrian kingdom, okay, right through here. And this all occurred, and this over here is one of three prisms, they call them, but they're cylinders, and it's about 38 centimeters high and 14 centimeters across. One is in London, and it's called the Taylor Prism. The one in Chicago called the ISAC Prism, and then one in Israel someplace called the Jerusalem Prism. These were found in 1830. This is the annals of King Sennacherib.
Really?
Yeah, if his events during his time. And it's cool because he writes about, what does he write about? I mean, this is a guy that's really with himself. And these are three different ones written by three different people, and they're very exact except for a few chronogram differences, spelling errors, they say it, So they're all three the same thing, talking about his adventures. Well, the thing is he didn't succeed. He went to go get Jerusalem, and he didn't. So what he did, this is kind of cool. What he did was he put up he had him make a relief of Lachish. That's one of the cities he attacked and won. He goes, look how good I am. Look at this. And made these things and put them all over the place. He didn't mention Jerusalem as a source of where he was going. He did mention it as the point where he says, aha, we captured King Hezekiah in his place. We put up all these barriers around him, and we've got him. He can't get out, and he can't go anywhere. Yeah, big deal. I mean, that's his message in these annals. He does not mention the 185,000 people killed, his soldiers. He doesn't mention that all this other stuff that happened. He mentioned all this of getting there, but he didn't mention that. And there's three of these things that they found, all of the same except for a few spelling errors. None of them mentioned that. Okay. Now, the thing is, do you think that the rest of the country's mentioned it? You bet. I mean, we always hear about things in these times. We think of, we got the internet and they didn't have that, but there are guys moving around all the time. They're telling everybody what's going on. People are aware of, like when the Israelites were coming up and God was protecting them all the way up, and there's fire at night and cloud of smoke in the daytime. The countries around that knew that he was coming. It was obvious. And they said, don't mess with that guy. They have a God that talks to them, and we don't. Rulers try to control their future, control their legacy. Okay. And that's what he did on these cylinders. He was trying to control his legacy. I'm a great king. I did all this stuff. Not so much. And, so then let's go on. Somebody read verses 13 to 16.
You who are far away, hear what I have done. You who are near, acknowledge my power. The sinners in Zion are terrified. Trembling grips the godless. Who of us can dwell with the consuming fire? Who of us can dwell with everlasting burning? Those who walk righteously and speak what is right, who reject gain from extortion and keep their hands from accepting bribes, who stop their ears against plots of murder and shut their eyes against contemplating evil. They are the ones who will dwell on the heights, whose refuge will be the mountain fortress. Their bread will be supplied and water will not fail them.
Okay. What's that right there?
Israel.
Yeah, it looks like drones.
Looks like
intercepting the missile.
It's the Iron Dome. That is their human understanding of how they should protect themselves. I mean, it works. We don't have around us cities. God would probably be a better choice, but they've not chosen that. Okay, this is what they've chosen. In verse 13, it says, the account of the amazing deliverance of Jerusalem was told far and wide. The Gentile nations had to acknowledge that God was great. Jehovah, the God of the Jews, was a great God for what he did. What did God do? Well, he did a few things, besides the victory there. He struck terror into the sinners in Zion. Zion's Jerusalem. Who are the sinners in Zion? These were those that enjoyed Zion's privileges, services, but in their hearts, they were not right with the sight of God. When they saw the dreadful execution of the wrath that God made, they were in great fright. That's what it's saying here. They were in great fright of the wrath that God because of their conscience they had provoked, and they were afraid they had provoked God by secretly worshiping other gods. So it's saying here that the people inside, the ones that he's protecting, the ones that were not with him, okay, even though they were in there, are scared now, as they should be. They look out there, and it's now open time to get the spoils. It's 185,000 dead people out there, and they're in here going, maybe I ought to get right with God. They haven't been for 2,000 years now, about 1,100 years at this point. They hadn't been right with God, but now they're beginning to see that. And then in verse 15 it says, he graciously provided the security of his people that trust him. And then who were these people? He talks about them. These are men of good character, even though at times of in common iniquity, they walk righteously. They speak uprightly. Oh my word, these are interesting things. They speak with honest intentions and abhor sin and the sin that other people have. These are what God is saying is the people he's going to protect. Okay. And then in verse 16 it says the ones that have communion with God. These are God's remnant. Okay. Somebody read verse 16 again. This is an important one.
They are the ones who will dwell on the heights, whose refuge will be the mountain fortress. Their bread will be supplied, and water will not fail them.
Okay, he's now jumping to the next phase already. He's saying, this is where the remnant will be hiding. This is where I'm going to protect the remnant during the last 3.5 years of tribulation. He's explaining where it is. We're going to talk about.
This is not Petra, is it? He said.
This is Petra.
Yeah.
Very
that's what I
good.
was thinking.
There's another name for it, and I think it's Bozara, but something like that it's called. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Petra's easy.
Petra's easier. Yeah, and we're going to talk about why that's the place here in a few minutes, but that's a very good point. Somebody read 17 through 20.
Your eyes will see the king in his beauty and view a land that stretches afar. In your thoughts, you will ponder the former terror. Where is that chief officer? Where is the one who took the revenue? Where is the officer in charge of the towers? You will see those arrogant people no more, people whose speech is obscure, whose language is strange and incomprehensible. Look on Zion, the city of our festivals. Your eyes will see Jerusalem, a peaceful abode, a tent that will not be moved. Its stakes will never be pulled up, nor any of its ropes broken.
So now he was talking about the end of the tribulation. Okay, now he's going right into the millennium, which is the next thing is the millennium. Okay, and he's saying, and in 17, verse 17, he's talking about really Assyria, that all this invasion stuff and all the way to dress rehearsal for the big battle of Armageddon. Let me show you what I'm getting ready to do. Let me show you how this works out. And then it talks about when our Lord was ministering on earth, the unbelieving Jews said, there is no beauty that we should desire him. That's in Isaiah 53:2, which we'll get to later, verse 17. When they see him and believe, supernatural conversion they're going to have, then they will perceive his beauty. So your eyes will see the king in his beauty. Up to this time, they couldn't see that because their eyes were blinded. Okay, so it's so cool. Just this thread that Kevin talks about is all the way through here. This is what's going on. They're going to be able to see during the time, right before the end of tribulation. They're going to be able to see that be supernaturally converted. Then they'll be able to walk into the millennium period. Okay, because they can't go there unless they're Christian. That's the only one in there. And they will be saved to the point of traveling far off lands. So they'll be, behold, you go to far off lands. It's going to be safe enough. You can go anywhere. There's not going to be wars going on. No, they won't get killed out there. And then it talks about down here about he who counts. There's a lot of discussion from the different commentaries of what all this means. I like the military version of it, but it was the scribe of war. This was a scribe or a secretary of war is he who counts. Let him appear to draw up a muster roll. Let him be the one that gets us all planned out. Make sure we have enough people. one who weighs, this is the paymaster of the army. Let him see that what's in the bank that have enough to defray the cost of this war. And then the one who counts the towers, someone who makes sure in the defensive towers around there that they're manned. I mean, you gotta have a schedule. They don't just go, hey, I'll go tomorrow. No, I'll go today. What about lunch? They got to take care of all these details have to be taken care of. And Isaiah is telling them that's going to happen. Then in verse 19, it said, they should be no more terrified with the sight of the Syrians. They were fierce people and they had a strange language. They couldn't understand what was going on. They couldn't understand or petition their complaints, and therefore they had a pretense of being deaf to the people. They couldn't do it. In contrast to the ordeal of the Assyrian siege, the Jews in the millennial reign will experience no terror, see no arrogant military officers inside their place or outside. And I love this one. Hear no foreign speech. What does that mean to you? Hear no foreign speech. I think we ought to sign up for Hebrew classes. They're going to be speaking Hebrew in the millennium. I just think that's what's going to happen. Are they going to miraculously let us understand everything? I don't know. But I think it's going to be Hebrew because the millennium is about the Jews. We're going to participate and observe and help and reign and rule and all that. But it's a Jewish deal. It's not our deal. He's trying to show them that everything I told you, every promise I made you is going to be completed. It's going to take 1,000 years. Okay. But it's going to be there. And so they're going to speak Jewish, Hebrew.
And if you think about it, go back prior to the Tower of Babel, there was only one language. It was at the Tower of Babel.
That's a good point.
That God spread people out and made them speak different languages. So is he now going to restore the common language?
Well, and think about in day of Pentecost, when everybody heard in their own language.
Yeah.
But they understood it. I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
there were a lot of people that were speaking different languages, but they could all understand each
Yeah. It's like
Which I think that's the way it is in heaven.
it's like the little translators you get on your phone now, where you can speak and they can speak. You can speak somebody, they'll hear it in their language, and they'll say something and hear it in your language. We use that over. You what?
It's gonna be better.
Yeah, it's going to be
Much better.
much better.
It doesn't translate Vietnamese very.
I still think we ought to get some beginner courses in Hebrew. I think that's what it's going to be. I don't know. Okay, then in verse 20, two things were promised to be well-grounded security, and there'd be unmoved stability. Jerusalem will be in tents, it says, that will not be moved. Somebody read 21 through 24.
But then the Lord will be the mighty one. It will be like a place of broad rivers and streams. No galley with oars will ride them. No mighty ship will sail them. For the Lord is our judge. The Lord is our lawgiver. The Lord is our king. It is he who will save us. Your rigging hangs loose. The mast is not held secure. The sail is not spread. Then an abundance of spoils will be divided, and even the lame will carry off plunder. No one living in Zion will say, I am ill, and the sins of those who dwell there will be forgiven.
Okay, so in 21, God himself will be their protector. The Jewish people were jealous of other nations and other cities because they had rivers and things. This is one of the very few cities of antiquity were not built on a river, because that's how you got in and out. But he's saying, hey, what's going on here is a place of rivers and wide canals will be in their home now. We're talking about the millennial reign. There'll be but no vessels will come there. No mighty vessels. No vessels of war will come in there. Okay, so we're going to have that. That's going to be a good deal. And water will flow from Zion, which is the New Jerusalem, and it will flow to the Dead Sea, because it talks about another place about all the fish. When the water hits it, the fish are going to come back to life, and so that's the Dead Sea. Right now, there's not fish, I guess, in there, but it'll turn into fresh water, and then it will flow out to the sea, and the sea being Mediterranean. And that doesn't flow there now, okay, but it will flow all the way out, and he's telling that. So in verse 23, it talks about Jerusalem was a ship that almost sank. He says tackle was slack. Well, that was the invasion. The Lord brought them through that storm. And it said even the weakest will, which is the lame, will share in the spoils. There's 185,000 dead guys out there with all their stuff. And they've been conquering all the cities and taking the spoils with them. So they've got the spoils of everybody else. Okay. So it's really going to be a rich time for spoils. Yeah. And then it says in one of the quotes out of the New Schofield Reference Bible says, all functions of government, judicial, legislative, and executive will be centered in the Messianic king, which is true. And we're going to be, so all of the power will be right there in Zion with Christ during the millennium. Okay, so then in verse 24, it ends up with, there should be a universal the joy of during the millennium is so great that the sick will even forget that they're sick. They'll be rejoicing, but they will be healed. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. We're getting ready to enter the millennium period of history, and only the Christians can enter. So all non-Christians must be destroyed, which is, we know. This happens during the Battle of Armageddon in the valley of Jezreel, southeast of Mount Megiddo. Megiddo, yeah. There's a valley. This is the Mediterranean Sea. This is the valley. This is where, Napoleon said this is a perfect battlefield. This is the end place of where the Battle of Armageddon will be fought. It'll start down in near Petra is where it's going to start. Okay. Okay. So that's what I was trying to get to. Okay. And this is what I was going to say. This is that whole thing about the battle. We've talked about this before, but Christ is going to come to earth back down here. Now, a lot of people think that Christ is going to come to earth at the Mount of Olives. It says in the manner, not the place of where he's coming back. So there's a lot of people that say, there's a discussion about this. It's a lot of thing with the Revelation that people want to say is different. But from what I understand, it's going to come back here. They're going to go up to here, start the battle. There's all these different stages before they get to the actual battle. This is the last battle of the tribulation. This is where everybody that is a part of the battle are going to be killed, and all of their family at home, wherever they're from, which is all over the world, will be killed. Why is that? This is the final thing before the tribulation. If you're a non-Christian and you got this far, you're going to die. And if you're not a Christian, so all those people will die. So the battlefield will die. We'll talk about some more of that in just a second. So someone now, let's go to chapter 34, verses 1-8 is what you need to read.
Draw near, O nations, to hear, and give attention, O peoples. Let the earth hear and all that fills it, the world and all that comes from it. For the Lord is enraged against all the nations and furious against all their host. He has devoted them to destruction and given them over to slaughter. Their slain shall be cast out, and the stench of their corpses shall rise. The mountains shall flow with their blood. All the host of heaven shall rot away, and the skies roll up like a scroll. All their hosts shall fall, as leaves fall from the vine, like leaves falling from the fig tree. For my sword has drunk its fill in the heavens. Behold, it descends for judgment on Edom, upon the people I have devoted to destruction. The Lord has a sword, it is sated with blood. It is gorged with fat, with the blood of the lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidney of rams. For the Lord has sacrificed in Bozar a great slaughter in the land of Edom. Wild oxen shall fall with them, and young steers with the mighty bulls. Their land shall drink its fill of blood. Their soil shall be gorged with fat. For the Lord has a day of vengeance, a year of recompense for the cause of Zion.
First of all, in verses 1, that should be 34. I'm sorry. In verses 1, it says the war is proclaimed. Okay, where it say, draw narrow nations is here. Listen to this. Remember that this is the war between the north and the south, and everybody's coming to Jerusalem to get rid of the Antichrist. Earlier, it's the north and some of the south people in the south coming to get the spoils out of Jerusalem, out of Israel itself, and that's the Ezekiel 38-39 war. This is the Armageddon war, and this is where they're coming. They're mad with, it's 3.5 years. Well, over the 3.5 years they've been fighting and everything. Now it's time to finish the Antichrist off. The people on earth think that, but then Christ shows up and they go, well, let's attack him instead, which is not a good deal. So remember at this time they had been through the they've been through the one world government before the tribulation. There was a one world government, then 10. That didn't work, so they did 10 countries, and that didn't work because then the Antichrist killed one of them. So now there's 7 in the Antichrist. Then he has the power, because the world understands it. He has the power to now sign the treaty with Israel for 7 years. Okay, that starts tribulation. Not the rapture. We don't know when the rapture is there. Someplace in that process. Okay, so then in verse 2, he talks about, I got the right chapter, the manifesto is set forth. What's the manifesto? It says, for the Lord's indignation against all the nations. Okay, who's he going to make war against? Everybody. All the nations. That's like everybody. And all the nations had the benefit of his patience. Okay, he's been patient all this time. So they must expect to feel his resentment too. You can't have both. Okay. His wrath is upon all the enemies, and they have done mischief to the people of God, the Israelites. With them, they hope to make their part good against the justice and power of God, and therefore on them, the first place, God's fury will come. Then the rest of the non-believers alive at this time. So he's going to get the military guys, and then he's going to kill all the rest of them. Okay. And then then we're going to jump to verse 8 and come back to verse 3. If verse 8 has, whom is he going to make war for? And the grounds for the reason is the Lord has the day of vengeance, a year of recompense. Okay, so he's telling you why he's going to do the war. Then go back to verse 3. The greatest men are nothing before the wrath of God. So they're slain, thrown out, and their corpses, they're nothing. Even the hard, rocky mountains would be drenched with blood. Sacrifices in the old days were intended for the honor of God and to make, because he hated sin and demanded satisfaction for it. And nothing but the blood will make an atonement. And thus the whole world would have been filled with blood of the sinners if it wasn't for Jesus Christ spilling his blood. That's what they're trying to say in this thing. The blood's going to be up to the mountains. It would be that way if it was not for Jesus doing his part. Okay. Okay. So now let's look at the operation of the war. The first in verses 4 through 6 are really describing the events that were happening in heaven. The skies roll back, the scrolls wear away, the host will fall. The host of the stars, the leaf wears the vine. The stars are going to fall out of the sky. Now we're going back to the worldwide judgment in verse 5. And they said here the sword, my sword, it says sated, which was bathed in heaven. Back then, they took the swords and they dipped them in liquid. They were annealing the swords, I guess. They make them either stronger or brighter. Not sure which. And so the sword that Jesus uses is always a sword of justice. He never has that sword used unless it's for justice. And then it talks about Edom and Bozrah. How do you say that? Bozrah. Yeah, Bozrah. He's talking about those places. Well, that's where Bozrah is in Edom. Edom is a bad, one of the commentators said that was an example to be used, but it really is also the fact that that's where the battle is going to start down there. The greatest men shall fall. And the nations of the earth sacrifice the Jews, so God is going to use them for sacrifice. That's why he goes down there for the slaughter in the land of Edom. Okay. Somebody read 9 through 17.
Edom's streams will be turned into pitch, her dust into burning sulfur. Her land will become blazing pitch. It will not be quenched night or day. Its smoke will rise forever. From generation to generation, it will lie desolate. No one will ever pass through it again. The desert owl and the screech owl will possess it. The great owl and the raven will nest there. God will stretch out over Edom the measuring line of chaos and the plumb line of desolation. Her nobles will have nothing there to be called a kingdom. All her princes will vanish away. Thorns will overrun her citadels, nettles and brambles her strongholds. She will become a haunt for jackals, a home for owls. Desert creatures will meet with hyenas, and wild goats will bleat to each other there. The night creatures will also lie down and find for themselves places of rest. The owl will nest there and lay eggs. She will hatch them and care for her young under the shadow of her wings. There also the falcons will gather, each with its mate. Look in the scroll of the Lord and read. None of these things will be missing. Not one will lack her mate, for it is his mouth that has given them, and his spirit will gather them together. He allots their portions, his hand distributes them by measure. They will possess it forever and dwell there from generation to generation.
So starting with verses 9 through 10, this the country shall become one of the I guess King James version says will become like a lake of Sodom. Says the stream shall be turned into pitch and loose the earth into brimstone. What he's talking, and it will be continually burning. Okay. What he's talking about is the desolate spots on the earth during the millennium. What does that mean? Places on the earth during the millennium, great time that no one will go. Okay, there's going to be spots. The first is Babylon, and this is in Isaiah 13. It says, it said, it shall never be inhabited, but the wild beasts in the desert shall live there. But burning pitch gives off a stench that the animals can't live there. But the wild beasts, it says, will live there. What's going on? These are the demons.
Like
Now, you remember Satan and the bad angels, the angels that procreated with women, they're in the abyss. Okay. But there's all these other demons out there. They got to be constrained also during the millennium period because there's no devil or minions during that time tempting us. Okay. God's using that time to show us that it's in us, not because of Satan. It's in us. So these birds, and these are the demons that look like and take the shape of animals. Okay, so a lot of places when it talks about demons, it gives them animal goats and things like that shape. So in Babylon is going to be one of those spots. The next one is in Edom. Okay, why Edom? What's
always been part of that group.
Esau.
Yeah.
They're going to be against them even up to the end time. Okay, so God says, okay, well, we're going to make it a place of desolation, and some of the demons will live there also. But there's two other places, and one is Egypt because of all the different things they tried to do. But they're not going to have demons live there. It's just no one's going to live there for the first 40 years of the millennial king reign. Okay, people will go around after 40 years. The next 960 years. You can go there, but during that first 40 years, you can't go there anywhere. And then Saudi Arabia, totally blocked out. Okay, and it's not going to be demons or anything there. It's just no one's going to go there. No one's going. In other verses, it talks about people walking by and seeing jackals, that's the demons in the other place, Babylon, and going, no, I'm not going there. Everybody going to go around those spots. The city shall become like old decayed houses, deserted, being commonly possessed by beasts of prey. Okay. This is the confusion and emptiness that shall overspread the face of the whole country. And it shall be like the world was, when it was created. In Genesis 1:2, it says the original words was TOHU and BOHU, without form and void. There's nothing. The earth is just there, a lot of story. God created all the atoms and protons and everything else. Then he starts putting things together. Okay. He created everything, then he puts it together. In the second day, he put the world, and it's just a mass of stuff. Okay, so confusion. Great men shall be cut off, and none will appear. This is a time when there's a lot of trouble going on during the end, right before the end of the battle, but all the good guys don't want to be a part of it. Okay. Look at the political candidates today. Look who we get. I mean, good men don't want to put themselves and their family through that process. And not our country, it's every country. You find there's lots of really, really good men out there, women too, sorry. But they're not, they don't want to be put in that. It says no one will want to do it. It's going to be so bad. They don't want to do this. They don't want to get through that process. And even the houses of state should become wilderness. The birds of prey will rendezvous there. There's an assurance given in the in 16, 17. It's going to happen. This is an assurance that it's going to happen. Now let's go to 35.
Isaiah 35, 1 through 4. The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The joy of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear. Your God will come. He will come with vengeance. With divine retribution, he will come to save you.
One of the things I saw in this is I'm curious about things, and I was reading to caught up to make sure I missed things when I wasn't here. And Steve did chapter 30. And I went back to look this morning to make sure he didn't say anything about this. And he didn't, so I'm going to say it. And then I'll tell you why. It says that the moon in verses 30, chapter 30, verse 26, says the moon is going to be as bright as the sun during the millennium. So this is what it looked like for the moon nighttime. Outside, look outside. The sun 7 times brighter. We're
Right.
worried about global warming. It's going to be 7 times brighter.
If it's 7 times brighter, it's going to burn the earth up.
No.
Because it's gone.
It's going to heal all of our afflictions during the first part of the millennium. The people that got in there that were still sick, it's going to heal their afflictions. God's going to burn all that away and make us good. So in here, in verse 35, the wilderness is going to turn into the good land. Now he's talking totally about the millennium reign. Okay, so he's describing it. We describe it in Isaiah over and over and over, and parts and pieces of it over and over and over. It's described all the way through the Bible and get to Revelation, and there's only 3 sentences on the millennium reign. So you got to find out from every place else what's going on. So when the Assyrians had the area, it was destroyed. When the Jews took it back over, it's flourishing again. And he's going to say, you haven't seen flourish. It's going to really be good during the millennial reign. And he's also going to give them their land back, right? That's the land, from best I can tell, of what God promised his people. So throughout the millennium, that's where they're going to reign. How are they going to get there? The Gentiles, we're going to help them. We're going to transport them. We're going to buy their tickets for them. We're going to pack up their clothes. We're going to get all this stuff and get them back over here. That's where they belong. That's his land. That's their land. Okay. And he promised they'd have it. They're going to have it. Okay. Then the glory of God was shining forth. He's going to manifest himself. I mean, he's on earth. He's living right there. He's going to manifest himself. It's what makes the desert bloom, says. The feeble and faint-hearted will be encouraged, and the assurance of the Savior. And somebody read 5 to 10.
Then will the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow. And a highway will be there. It will be called the way of holiness. It will be for those who walk on that way. The unclean will not journey on it. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor any ravenous beast. They will not be found there. but only the redeemed will walk there, and those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away.
So the wonders should be wrought in the kingdom both of nature and grace. That's in man and his soul, is what they're really saying there. And then the Spirit will be poured out from high. This is kind of interesting. In the King James, it says the habitation of dragons. It talks about that. It says when the Christian churches were first started and were going all over the nations and the world, they were planted, they were put there, and then the Christians came out and the demons went away. Okay. And so as people were converted to Christianity, the habitation of the dragons went away. In the millennium, it's the other way around. There's going to be Christianity everywhere. Okay. Now, not eventually, as generations go on, not all of them will be Christian, but they will be in charge and they will be the ones ruling everything. The way of the religion of God is the way of holiness. That's the road right up to Jesus. Okay. It's going to be a big road. You can get on it. There's nothing going to bother you while you're in there. And the end of all this is going to be joy.